This is the Our York Media Podcast, an audio and video production that features the good news makers of York County, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Rebecca Hanlon. Today we're sitting down with Ricky Quintero, a local community member. You work for the city of York.
Correct.
And we just want to get to know you and what you do. We've heard a lot of good things.
Awesome.
So thank you for coming over. I know you have a very busy day, but we really appreciate you making time to stop in and talk to us about who you are.
Well, thank you for having me here. It is an honor to be invited. I'm very grateful you heard good things about me. That's always good. But who am I? I'm just a regular individual who's invested in the community.
Yeah.
I truly believe that our highest calling is serving others. And whether it's serving your husband, your wife, your kids, your neighbor, or your friend, just giving help and serving the next person is the greatest things that we can do. I take pride in that. And having the career that I have allows me to do that. Having a tangible impact to the people that are around me, it's one of the greatest fulfillings that I can have as a man. And I'm very proud of that. Not everyone gets to have that chance. And so I'm very humble and grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us about where you're from, how you came to York.
Yeah, so it's a long story. I was born in Colombia, South America, the country. I was there for the first 13 years of my life. And then my mother and my little baby sister, we moved to the New York City area in this little city called Union City, about 10 minutes from the New York City area, about 10 minutes from Manhattan across the Hudson River.
Okay.
We lived there for a long time, for the majority of my teens and 20s. And around the beginning of the 2000s, my mother fell in love with someone that was from York, PA, but was working in North Jersey. And so they began dating, and they would come to York, PA to visit his family. And she fell in love with the area. Eventually, they made the move to get married. And so my mom made the decision to buy some real estate here in York.
Okay.
At that time, I was finishing high school. So obviously, I wasn't ready to make that transition yet. I was still in the New York City area. I wanted to live that life. I wanted to experience that part of, my destiny per se. And I said, listen, I'm going to stay behind. I'm old enough. I still have family here. And my mom respected my decision. And so she moved here. She bought some properties here, and I stayed behind. And so, I went to school and I did, I worked in all types of things. I did some manufacturing. I did IT for a long time. And I was doing really well. But in my mid-20s, I started having a crisis. I wanted to be with my family, my immediate family. Me, my mother, and my sister. We always been together since, forever. Yeah. And I didn't know any other family until I came to this country. So not having them around for that time was really hard for me. And so I just couldn't find myself. I had everything I needed. I had everything I wanted, but I didn't have that part of myself that would make me whole. I needed to be close to my family. Yeah. And I was finding ways of moving back here. And I was blessed enough to know a friend from school that I went to high school with who was working for county government here in York County at the time. Okay. And we reconnected on Facebook. And he found out that my family was from York as well, was living in York City. And he said, hey, he was taking his job in D.C. with the government of D.C. And he heard he had some connections with York City. At that time, a lot of Hispanic people were moved from the New York City area to this area. And so they needed bilingual individuals that had some experience, that had some education, and that were willing to train and take that leap of faith with city government. And so he said, hey, I have some connections. Come here. I can put in a word for you. You can apply, see how it goes. At first, I was reluctant. I never thought the government would be something for me, but it gave me an opportunity to be close to my family. Yeah. So I said, I'll quit my job and I'll give it a try. I'll stay for 6 months first to see what happens. If I get the job, then I try for a year. Yeah. Worst comes to worst, I get to be with my family for that 1 year and go back home. Okay. And so I came here, I applied for the job, and I got it right away. I was blessed enough to get it through city government with no problem. And so I started my career in code enforcement. I started working for the Bureau of Permits, Planning, and Zoning. And I just went through the ranks. I became a certified permit technician, and then I became a certified building code official, and pretty much learned all the trades within that bureau, within that department.
And Ricky, when was this?
That was 2009
okay.
to the ending of 2008
okay.
to 2009.
Yeah.
And so through my years in that department, PP&Z, I pretty much learned the intricacies of every single title or position that was within there. So I did a little bit of zoning, did a little bit of planning and subdivision. I assisted the planner and learned a lot of the intricacies within that department. I learned a lot about code inspections when it comes with property maintenance codes.
Yeah.
And I became a jack of all trades, and I was very successful. And one of the things that I took pride in is I developed a system for new business owners to go through the city system to get permitting. So before, there was no one that would sit down with you and talk to you when you wanted to open up a business in New York City. That would just give you an application and they'll tell you just fill it out, bring it back, and we'll send it for approval.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of bilingual people coming here, Spanish people that needed help. I took it upon myself to create a system where I would actually be a liaison with you. So I would be the one that would walk you through the process, and I would try to mitigate any issues that you can have with other tiers of government, whether it would be with county or getting financial assistance. So, I called different banks. I inquired with people that were working at the county, with people that were working at the economic and community development department within the city. And I said, hey, so if someone comes here and just has an idea of having a business but does not know how can I connect them? How can I walk them through the process? What weapons can you give me to arm them so that they can successfully fulfill their dreams? And so I became that person. So for a long time, anybody that wanted to open that business that would hear, hey, just talk to that guy, Ricky, at Permits Planning and Zoning. He will walk you through the process. He will show you what you need to do. If you need any assistance, he has the connections. He can connect the dots for you to do it. And at the same time, I would pre-approve the permit applications for the new business, and I would work with zoning and then the Department of Economic and Community Development all the way through the county, and then for them to get their inspections, to get their business done.
But that wasn't necessarily like part of your job, right?
It wasn't. Well, it was only the preliminary part of it. So making sure that they understood the codes and the regulations involved from a city perspective for them to apply, give them the application, and just, once they were ready, have a preliminary review and just send it for processing. But that was hindering a lot of folks, because when you open up a new business and you're a brand new owner, and you have no experience, you have all these questions. And especially if you only speak Spanish and you speak one language, there was no one that can communicate with you and give you the options that were available for you.
So what were some of the problems that they were facing with the language barrier?
Not knowing where to find help. And fear of being rejected, fear of being segregated and being turned around. Unfortunately, because a lot of immigrants face that coming here, they're hesitant to come to their government for assistance.
Gotcha.
And a lot of them, they just don't know where to find the help. Sometimes it is there, but there's no one there to tell them, hey, listen, it is here. This is where you could go. I can talk to you. Perhaps I can make that call for you. I may not have the answers, but I can reach out on your behalf. And again, that goes back to, my fulfillment, which is like serving others. And it sounds cliche, but to me, like I said, is one of the greatest callings that we can have. I would say if I were to die tomorrow, the only thing you would remember is this conversation that we had. And so if I can impact you, only if it's for this brief 20 minutes, then that's all you would remember about me. And so I take that very seriously. And, I think that way very much because of the experiences that I have lived through in my life, the struggles, the adversities, that has made me appreciate life to a greater scale than before. And so I think that is contingent with what I'm doing now.
What were some of those things that you faced that you think relate to what you were doing, at that time and even now? What were those adversities that influenced you?
Well, I would say just having the experience of coming from a third world country per se, although Colombia now it's doing great. But at the time that we came, obviously it was a country where the economic opportunity was not as great as it is here. And so having that transition from being in a place where, I didn't have much, or we didn't have the opportunity that I have here. And then coming here, learning a new language, learning the culture, embracing it as my own, and just going through the ranks and going through school and doing the best that I can do to acclimate myself to this culture. That in itself is a struggle. But, I did face a lot of poverty when I was in my country. We had a lot of issues trying to make it. But we were blessed to have family that were living here since the 70s. And so that gave us an opportunity to experience, the beauty of this country and the many opportunities. But, other than that, probably something that I don't say to a lot of people, but those that know me closely know is that I'm a cancer survivor. And so in 2011, I was told that I had 2 years to live. And I was 27 at the time. I always been athletic. I always took care of myself as much as possible. So knowing that at that point, I was facing just 2 years, even if things went kind of well, my chances were 50% or less.
Wow.
And that changes your whole perspective. And through the whole experience, I was in government. I was serving others.
Yeah.
And so that enhances the mission of being there for the next person, right? And it was terrible, for a long time, the treatment and the surgeries, and even when they thought that it wasn't coming back, just walking on eggshells, thinking, well, am I going to make it 2 more years, another year? So what impact am I going to make in the meantime? How can I make every aspect of my life something meaningful? And so I took my job as one of those avenues to do that. It was my own therapy per se, and that has allowed me to go through the ranks and be where I am today.
Wow.
So I think everything happens for a reason. Before I used to be ashamed and I did not want to talk about that part of my life, but now I'm proud of it because I can be a voice of encouragement for others, and I can say I've been there in your shoes, and I've met a lot of people that have gone through the same thing that I've been through. And once they know my experience, they feel a lot better.
Yeah.
And I also tapped a lot into my faith. I tapped a lot into having a better relationship with others, how to empathize with people's pains and anger. So all of those things, every struggle and adversity that you face in life would help you become a better person. It sounds cliche, but in a position like mine, it allows me to be a better public servant. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So as you started kind of helping people who were facing some of these adversities, in particular with language barriers and wanting to chase their own dreams with, owning a business and whatnot, what were some of the things that you learned along the way or saw that, could be improved upon?
Well, at the time, I would say more cohesive and structured between how all of us are connected to accomplish one goal. In realms like public government, there's a lot of transitions. With every new administration, new people come in, new people get out, people find better opportunities or they decide to go on a different route. So having a cohesive structure to keep those gears moving at the time was a struggle. But I think as we have gained staff that are committed and wholeheartedly have taken that step to be, there for York, then we have become better as a unit. So I think at the time that was one of the issues, and I feel like right now we have made great strides and improvements when it comes to that. The staff that we have now, I'm proud to say that we are all committed. We have all taken that leap of faith to make York a better place. And I'm very proud to be part of that. Okay.
So how did your career shift then to get you to where you are now?
So like I explained to you, I started my career in government when I came here to York.
Yeah.
I was in the code enforcement side of things. And so one thing about my job in PPNZ, which is the acronym for Permits, Planning, and Zoning, that I did not like is that I was on the enforcement side. And I always like to be a helper. I like to be a giver. Mainly because of my adversities and struggles and my experiences. I know what it's like to look for help and not have it, or find the resources and not find them, or reach out and not have someone there to help you, right? So I always been more geared towards the other side of government, which is not always saying, no, you can't do this. I'm going to shut down your building, or the UN code violation, as opposed to saying, let me help you. Let me find ways into how we can get government to help instead of telling you no. And so I was blessed through having the experience at PPNZ to be asked by then former Director of Economic and Community Development, Kevin Schreiber. He ran for office and obviously got elected as a state representative. He asked me to be part of his team, and that was an opportunity that I will always be grateful for, because it allowed me to have the experience of government on the other side of things, which is the legislative side, which is creating laws and finding ways in how you can have a conversation and a complaint from an average citizen or resident and make that into a law that can benefit an entire community. And so that allowed me to do a lot of constituent outreach, to actually go out there in the field and talk to people, find out their problems, figure out ways in how you can better the community in which you serve. So it took me from the enforcement side to actually reaching out and helping and creating ways into making the residents of my community more vibrant and happy. And that was great. I learned a lot, and I'm very grateful to the team that I work with Kevin and himself. It allowed me to tap into a part of myself that I was yearning to learn about, and was actually having a tangible impact in creating something that wasn't there before. Yeah. And that side of politics and government allows you to do that. And so through that, I was grateful enough to build a lot of accolades and gain a lot of experience. And I was fortunate enough to build enough bridges that then it allowed for the new mayor, our mayor, Michael Helfrich, to offer me the opportunity to be his executive administrator. And so I did a full circle. Yeah. It allowed me to go back to, the city, the government entity that I started my career with. And I'm very grateful for that, because now I can give back all of those years of experience back to the highest office within city government to do the very best that I can to have that tangible impact again with the community that I serve. And now that we have a huge influx of Latinos moving here, more so than before, it just plays. It just played out perfectly. Because I'm not really able to make that difference the best I can, and so that's how I pretty much came to be where I am today. Yeah.
So what does your role in the city look like now?
Well, everyone in the city has to be a jack of all trades. Yeah. We all wear more than one hat. We have to be prepared to answer many questions. And we know that if we don't have the answer, we will try our best to at least connect it to someone who can. And so in my role, I'm the executive administrator to the mayor. So I manage the day-to-day operations of the mayor's office. And that involves everything from, event planning to scheduling to being the gatekeeper, and vetting anyone who's coming into the mayor's office, making sure that everyone that comes to the mayor's office and anything that comes to him aligns with, the mission of what we are as a mayoral office, which is to serve others and to accomplish the vision of the mayor's goals. So I do a lot of vetting, do a lot of public relations, a lot of marketing, like I said, event planning, content creation, as you do as well. You name it, I do it. Yeah. So it's not like one specific sheet of job descriptions. Yeah. I pretty much do everything that is necessary to make sure that the mayor's office it's doing its mission of serving the people. And of course, I have to make sure that the mayor has everything he needs to get his job done. Yeah. And so that's also the main priority as the executive administrator, is to make sure that he's assisted at the executive level as best as possible.
In what ways do you kind of live out your personal mission, to help others and that, fulfillment that you had so long ago and doing that? How do you do that, currently?
How do I do that now? Well, I would say that my job, it's part of my personal life. Of course, I do like to have some privacy. I like to be a private person, but a lot of what I do out there, it's my life. It's just what I do. Yeah. There's no, it's, when you're in this type of work, it's hard to find a delineation between what you're doing and being proud of who you are. Yeah. Unless you're working for a section of government that's just very technical. But if where I am, or in a public servant position where you're constantly working with people and your job is to enhance people's welfare and livelihoods, then I believe that should be part of anyone's life. Mm-hmm. So what I do is just who I am all the time. And so, when people ask me, well, how do you break it down? How do you separate your personal from work? I'm like, well, I try, but I think even if I want to, I can't. Even when I'm visiting other towns or meeting new people, when people find out what I do, it's automatically a continuation of what I do. Oh, well, how can you help me? Do you know anyone that can assist me here? Or do you have some advice? So you always find yourself again in that role of, how can I serve the next person? How can say, do, or create something that wasn't there before? so that if I'm not there tomorrow, at least I left something behind that is meaningful. And so, I live my life with that mindset that it's all about legacy. And legacy doesn't need to necessarily mean, leaving a stature or thousands of dollars for a nonprofit. I mean, that'd be great. I would love to do it if I can get to that level where I can donate millions of dollars and change, people's lives with money. But you can change someone's life with just helping them at the very basic level, with empathizing, with connecting them, with showing them that they're loved, that they can be heard, that regardless of their problems or their backgrounds and their issues, there's someone there that can listen, because a lot of people don't have that. And I've been there. I know what it's like to, want to have someone reach out to you, but you not have the words to call out for them. And so because I've been there, I know how to reach out to people. And I think that's what helps me, and that's why I'm so good at what I do. It's because I can read people's struggles and I can read people's necessities, because I have lived them, and I can say, hey, maybe you mean this. Maybe let me help you with this. And say, well, I'm sorry, this is crazy, but this is what I've been feeling all along. This is what I've been wanting to ask for you guys, and you just happen to bring it out. And so that's why I'm so grateful about my experiences, and I'm so grateful to be where I am today. Because, public service and what we do is just an extension of what we are as humans. We're social beings, and I believe that we were designed and created to help one another. And having a job that allows me to do that's just a blessing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned kind of the continued growth of the Latino population in New York, which we've seen for some time that's a growing population that we have. How have you tried to continuously serve those folks who are coming in from that sector? Communication
and reaching out. Obviously, we're very proud to say that I'm the first Spanish-speaking person that is at the mayor's office, because now that segment of that community, that population now has someone that they can relate to, and that they're not afraid to approach. And I also happen to encourage folks, those that are growing up, kids that are Latinos, and they want to be someone that can say, well, I know that guy is at the mayor's office. Perhaps I can be the mayor one day, or I can be the president. So I know that there's a lot of responsibility within me to do the best I can to reach out to them and to represent my community the best I can. And that's what I try to do. So I get very involved with all events that are in the city. Anything that I can be a part of, if it's within the parameters of my capabilities to be there, I'll be there. I participate in as many Hispanic sponsored events as I can. We just created the first Hispanic Heritage Month committee, an actual committee to celebrate and program and equip the Hispanic Heritage Month for years to come. And so I'm very proud to be one of those creators of that group, and we have an excellent team that are currently working into making every Hispanic Heritage Month, what other events are, that already have been established in New York City. Because we don't have a parade, we don't necessarily have a cultural week per se, where we can, just highlight the richness of the many cultures that are the Hispanic population. We are several countries from different races, speaking one language, that are able to offer just a variety of cultural richness to everyone. And that's what we want to share. And I also serve as the YWCA. I'm a member of the YWCA's Racial Justice Committee, so that allows me to have an impact on that segment as well. And so it's all about, just reaching out. It's all about just putting yourself out there. A lot of people, or some people, look at government as a one solution for everything. But what we are as government is we're also a conduit. We're also a channel. We're also a connector. And what makes us a good government is the inclusion and, people working with us, people being able to volunteer their time to, work with us and talk to us and be part of everything that we are doing. So we might not have all the answers, but with you as a citizen being with us, then we might get those answers together. And those are the ways in which I'm helping my community, just, staying out there, making myself available as much as I can, providing any help that I can provide. And if I don't have the answers, then I will connect you to someone who can. And if you need a reference, if I can use my influence in any way, shape, or form to get the job done for you and get you some help, then I'll do that. And I think that's providing dividends within my community.
Do you find, you mentioned that you're the first Spanish speaking, staff person within this office. Do you find that within the many hats that you have to wear, are you translating for a lot of
Of course. Yes. Let me say this, to give the mayor credit, he does speak some Spanish.
Okay.
He's, when he has to, he does it, and he does it well. But I do find myself translating a lot, and that's, that is not a problem with me. That is something that I do with pride. Because I know that I'm providing a service that not everyone is able to provide. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud to serve a government that can say, hey, I do have someone to speak your language. I do have someone that's in this level that can provide that help for you. And so, I take pride in that. We do have only a few staff within New York City government that do speak the language. So, of course, all of us find ourselves sometimes unable to help everyone right away.
Right.
Sometimes they have to call and get to serve people. Hey, this person is not in. Can you help translate? But I believe as we transition and we enhance our staff and we grow, we hopefully should be able to at some point get maybe more people that speak the language. And maybe those that don't could learn. Again, the options are open. Anything is possible. But yes, I do translate a lot, and a lot of the conversations that I have within the mayor's office are in Spanish because now they know there's someone there that can relate to them and that can help them. And I take pride in that. It's something very fulfilling that I can serve someone within my community in a country whose language is not the ones that they're trying to speak with. So I'm very grateful and blessed for that.
There's kind of obvious benefits of that, but if you could kind of speak to why it's so important that those residents have somebody that they can speak to. I mean, what are the ripple effects that you've seen from individuals who are primarily Spanish speaking, just being able to have someone that they can, more clearly communicate with? What is the benefit of that?
Well, encouragement and empowerment. I think that once you can speak to someone in their language who is trying to learn our language, the English language, but is having a little bit of trouble getting to know the information they need, and that information is given to them in their language, and you'd give them the empowerment to now make a difference and say, hey, you might not be fluent, but there's still things that you can do to be a productive citizen. There's things that you can do to be a productive member of this society. You obviously came here because you love this country, because there are things that this country offers that others don't. And this is why we're a melting pot and we're a nation of immigrants. So now that you know the information, perhaps you can join the next Hispanic Heritage Month committee meeting, or you can go to the next town hall, or you can go to the next council meeting, and even though you don't speak the language, at least you know what the emphasis or gist of those meetings are. And if you need me to be there to translate, I can do that. So empowerment. Once someone is able to give you the tools that you need, then you can just grow. And a lot of us, all of us, we at some point we always need help, right? Someone had to teach us the way. Someone had to tell us, hey, perhaps try this or try that. And I'm happy to be able to do that to those that need that assistance in their language.
How do you see that making York a better place?
How do I see that making York a better place? Well, anything that enhances every segment of the community will ultimately enhance York City. And when York City thrives, York County thrives. And everything is more vibrant when you have different colors, right? If everything was black, if everything was white, if everything was yellow, if every plant was blue and everything was green, nothing would be fun, right? We are better when things are different, right? It is the change of opinion. It is the ability that we have to express ourselves and be respected. Our Constitution, everything that makes America is founded on that diversity, on just us being respected for who we are and acknowledging the things that we can offer, as opposed to only emphasis on the things that can divide us. And so, being able to reach to all segments of the community eventually would enhance, just the spirit of the city. When everyone feels that they're acknowledged, when every segment and population of York City feels that they're being listened to, or at least that we're trying to, they feel pride in being York City residents, and at the same time they will feel pride in being York County residents. And that in turn would, and it would encourage other people to move into this county, and enhance the economy and enhance the diversity, and enhance our tax base, because then more people want to buy property, and then more people want to open up businesses here, because we're so diverse and we offer so many options to so many segments of people. So it's all a chain reaction, and it starts by serving people regardless of who they are, or where they come from, or what their problems are. It's all about, hey, can I serve you? My job is just to make sure that if I don't have an answer, I can connect it to one who does.
Yeah.
And that if I have the power to make a difference in your life, that I could do that. And it all starts with that. And I think that's just the emphasis of everything. Like I said, whether you serve your friend, whether you're serving your coworkers, whether you're serving your family, your kids, your neighbor, it doesn't matter. But anything that you do for the next person would create a ripple effect that would eventually come back to you in positivity. And I think that's what we're seeing in New York. I mean, if you look at the amount of movements that we have, or entities, organizations that have, come together to make New York a better place, it's nothing. We haven't seen that in years, and we're very proud of that. And I think that's one way in which what we're doing is creating that ripple effect that you're talking about.
Yeah. Do you have experiences, obviously in the years that you've kind of worked within the city or in government, do you have things that stand out to you, experiences that you've had or conversations with people that will never leave you?
Wow, so many. Where do I begin? It's too many to delineate one or pick one, but I can tell you one from every level that I've worked in government. So when I started municipal, which is where I am now, but in code enforcement, of course there were a lot of businesses, specifically Hispanic businesses, that were trying to open up in New York City. And they were unsuccessful in their cities that they came from, which were major cities, because of funding, or either because of the language barrier, or just the city being too big for them to know where to go for help. And so, there are some businesses that are still around, what we call bodegas, or like corner stores. There are some folks that are still standing today that every time I pass by their business, they thank me like I did something great. And I did. And all I did was just give them the information they needed and actually sit down and empathize with them and show them that, hey, this is possible. This is the way that you can accomplish this dream, and I might not have all the answers, but I do have the connections to all the people that can help you. And so I, from that perspective, I've helped a lot of business owners that I can, that would always stick with me, and right now, off the top of my mind, it's hard for me to say a lot of those names. I can't remember, but if I go to the stores, I would. But that's just one example. For another example that I can give you that I often talk about was when I was working as a legislative assistant for the House of Representatives for Kevin Schreiber when he was in office. I used to do a lot of constituent service. Legislative assistants, that's one of the main tasks, is to do a lot of case management and figure out ways on how to help people, because you are an extension of your state representative. We are supposed to represent you, and we have connections with every state agency that there is within the state. So a lot of people come to you with a plethora of issues, where there is issues with your birth certificate, or issues with federal government in which you're supposed to make that connection, or issues with the Department of Aging or welfare, or state police, or children and youth. You name it, you are the liaison for that person with every other agency in the state. And so I had this one time, there was this Portuguese gentleman, and he had a work visa, and his visa had expired. Right now, he had an extension from the embassy and from the United States, giving him that extension for him to how can I explain it? So he had an extension saying that even though he didn't have his new visa renewed, he could still be here legally on that extension, pretty much. But that did not allow him to have a driver's license here. It was revoked. It was taken away from him as soon as he lost that status. And even though he had an extension at the time, whether it was the red taping or the bureaucracy involved in the process for you to get a license in PA, they would not allow that. And that was his livelihood. He didn't have any family. He came here with a friend. He got a work visa. He was trying to go to school, and now, he was losing his job. He couldn't get around. So, the guy, came with tears, and he was an older gentleman. And again, it goes back to your experiences. So I know what that's like. I didn't personally go through that, but I am an immigrant myself, and I am proud of being an immigrant. And I know the struggle of just coming here and try to make something out of nothing, right? And having that resilience of saying, you know what, I'm going to make it. And so I found it upon myself to go beyond what I was supposed to do. And like, I moved heaven and earth with the Department of Motor Vehicles. I spoke to a lot of the higher executives. You know, I introduced myself as, you know, representing, you know, my legislator, and this is what we're trying to do for this constituent. And I even contacted the federal government to get documents proving that extension. You know, I forwarded those documents to the Department of Motor Vehicles here, to PennDOT, and it was like 4 or 5 days of intense just back and forth through emails and conversations, and me just not taking a message for an answer or a voicemail. I kept following up, and I think my persistence paid off. They were able to get him his license based on that extension. And again, it's something simple. It really is not something that meaningful when you're but it's really the impact that I did for this one person, and the fact that this man had been trying to get what I had done for him in a few days for months, and it's just because he didn't know who to reach out to, and he didn't have anyone that could necessarily speak his language. But Portuguese is very similar to Spanish, so I was able to understand more or less what he was trying to say. But it's just empathizing with that person. And, you know, I could have easily done my job properly by saying, hey, no, that's no problem. I will submit your case to the appropriate agency. They would follow up with me, and I will communicate with you. And anything else that I can do, I would gladly do it for you. That would have been great, right? I would have provided a service. I would have connected him and told him what he needed to do. And I would have submitted, you know, that paperwork for him and provided any help that I could. But sometimes it takes more than that. Sometimes it takes a dedication to actually go beyond what you're supposed to do to make a difference in someone's life. And again, it goes back to, is that something that you would do for your friend? Is that something that you would do for a stranger? Is that something that you would do for your kids? It doesn't matter who it's for. You know, service is our highest calling, and that I would always say that. You know, it's the greatest thing that we can do as human beings. And, you know, when I go back to what I experienced when I was really sick, is God, you know, if I don't get to ever get married, if I don't get to fulfill my dreams and to reach my potential, if I close my eyes tonight, you know, at least I want that person to remember me, not for my flaws, not for my mistakes, not for what I've done, but for the good things that I have accomplished. Even if it's just bringing a smile to you, you know, at least you would remember that. And so that's something that I take with pride, and that I never try to forget. And that keeps me doing a good job.
That's really cool. Yeah. So what's next for you, do you think?
What's next for me? I obviously want to continue to serve people. I want to continue to help in whatever capacity that is. I love working in government because it gives me an ability to have a tangible impact and to really be part of the solution. So I like that. Yeah. I would obviously, I wouldn't mind growing and professionally within this career. But, you know, whatever God wants. I feel like I'm well equipped and experienced to do a lot of different things in different sectors. So whatever happens, happens. But for now, my immediate mission is just to keep helping York City become what it is, and to do my job well for others within the capacity that I'm in as the executive administrator for the city of York.
What do you think York can do next for the Latino community, the Spanish-speaking population that we have? What can we do to further serve that demographic?
I think that we need to empathize more, and we need to be more inclusive. We need to be able to understand that, you know, what makes us different is actually what unites us, and it's not what separates us. Yeah. You know, as the diversity and, you know, our different personalities and backgrounds and cultures that makes us more enhanced as a community. So we need to really understand and take our time to really absorb what others' communities and cultures have to give us. You know, a lot of us want to know the world, and we want to travel the world precisely for that, because we want to get to know other cultures, and we want to get to know, you know, how other people live, and how they express their emotions and how they live their lives. And we're so blessed to be in a nation where all of that comes to us, and a lot of us just want to push that away. So we're willing to go somewhere else and absorb all of that. But when we have people around us that are willing to give us all of that, sometimes we are hesitant to embrace that. And I think that we probably need to change that mindset a little bit and embrace what we have here today. We're not being invaded. We're not being taken over. We're being enhanced. If anything, we are being made better as a community because we have so many, it's just such a diversity, such richness of cultures and people coming with so many things to provide. And I can say that wholeheartedly with that, what York City is doing because we believe in ourselves and we really do want to make a difference. And so just being part of that is just great. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and
No
talking and sharing your story. I feel enlightened myself.
Thanks.
And really appreciate all the things that you do for our community. I'm excited to see whatever it is that you do in the future, or even the things that you do in your current role. So
thank you. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate the platform and giving me the opportunity to express myself and encourage others and just tell people that we're here for them.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening. For more information on Our York Media and our Good News Initiative, you can visit ouryorkmedia.com. We appreciate your attention and give bonus points for those who subscribe.